Welcome to the AACOM Council on Residency Placement and UME-GME Task Force Data Collection Action Group webinar on how to use data to inform the residency selection and match process. I'm Ken Hiles. I'm actually the chair of the Council on Residency Placement and acting as your facilitator tonight. The panelists that we have with us are Angie Clemmer from Kansas City University College of Osteopathic Medicine. She's a residency placement coordinator on the Kansas City campus. Katie Harden is actually she's on the UME-GME task force. She's the Unmatched Action Group chair, and she's also from Kansas City University College of Osteopathic Medicine. She's on the Joplin campus where she functions as a residency coordinator. We have Jazz Patel from the Alabama College of Osteopathic Medicine. She's the Director of Career Services. And Dr. Martin Timoney, who's the University of Incarnate Word, and he's the Director of Residency Advising. And Jazz, pardon me, that you're also a PharmD, so it would be Dr. Jazz Patel also. A few housekeeping things before we get started is a recording of this presentation in PowerPoint will be made available afterwards. If you have any further questions, feel free to contact GME initiatives at AACOM.org. And thank you for joining. If you're experiencing any technical issues, use the Zoom webinar option to raise your hand, and we will assist you. If you have any questions or comments at any time, please type in on the Q&A feature. We're going to discuss tonight how to define competitiveness, and we'll review many resources and availability and resources available and how to utilize them. And then we'll have a question and answer. We did review those that sent questions ahead of time, and a lot of the questions will be answered during the presentation. And then we've consolidated a few that we will also ask at the end of the presentation. But again, feel free to enter your questions, and please do it through the Q&A and not through the chat. At this point, I will turn it over to our panelists and let them get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hiles. So Angie and I are going to, as panelists, kind of share with you our perspective as advisors when it comes to the competitiveness you need to consider for your specialty considerations. So when I talk to my students and I'm talking to them about deciding what specialty is the right fit for them, I use the term right fit quite a bit. Right fit and reach. So a right fit specialty is going to be a specialty in which the data and the information you have access to is in your favor, that your academics, your profile, your application profile aligns with what others have successfully matched into that specialty. And a reach specialty would be the opposite. So where the data is not necessarily in your favor, that you have access to, it is regards to your application profile. So when considering a right fit specialty, there are two things that I go to first and foremost. And number one is academic performance while in medical school. And the second would be board scores. So when it comes to your academic performance, the things you have to take into consideration would be, how have I performed in all of my courses? Have I honored any, or have I failed any? Have I been on the dean's list, or what quartiles have I been in? All of those components make you either a really strong applicant for a specialty or a not so right fit for the specialty. Same thing with board scores. How you score on your level 2 exam, that numerical score, can honestly have an impact on whether or not you can really apply to a specialty. The more competitive specialties have higher standards. So they're going to have higher academic expectations, as well as your board score minimums. I will just throw some specialties out there that we know typically they're unforgiving. And unfortunately, if you have a course failure or a board failure, it's going to be extremely challenging to apply to. And that's honestly mostly your surgical specialties. So OB-GYN, general surgery, orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, otolaryngology, dermatology, a specialty that we're starting to see climb in their competitiveness, just because of how many applicants have become interested in just literally like the last 2 years. We're starting to see higher standards for applicants would be anesthesiology. When these programs these specialties have so many applicants applying, they expect higher performance out of them, the applicants. And so when they have so many, they don't want to even consider those with failures. So unfortunately, as an individual, if you do have any kind of academic or board failures, you need to have some conversations with your advisor about your ability to match successfully into some of those highly competitive specialties. But there's my opinion, I think there's some other things to think about when it comes to whether or not you're competitive for a specialty. And that's things like your experiences, what you did during undergrad and medical school, as far as like volunteering and leadership and teaching and work. All of those can help you become a competitive applicant or more competitive applicant for a specialty. You think about those highly competitive specialties I rattled off, all those surgical specialties. A lot of those specialties expect you to be able to display leadership skills. So having had leadership experiences, it allows you to showcase to them that, hey, I've got the traits and skills that you expect of me. Why do they expect that? Because when you're in the OR, they need you to be able to take charge and to command the room when necessary. There's a lot of specialties that they want to see that you work well in teams. So some of your volunteering and some of your teaching and other work experiences, you're able to showcase to them, hey, I have these character traits that you are looking for. And all of those things can help make you a much more competitive applicant for the specialty. Angie, what's your thought? What other things that I haven't mentioned that you advise when you talk to your students and they're trying to decide on right fit specialty?
Well, we start to talk about things about what they're also looking for in life. And that's been some of the things we've heard about anesthesiology. They're looking for that life-work balance. And that's why why they like those specialties. So we talk through some of those things. Do you have a family and children? You need to be home after 5 o'clock. Do you what are your expectations or family needs that play into, it will affect your specialty. And then talking to them about, okay, so we know this, or if there's geographic preferences, what's available in that region? Are you able to do that? How important is it to you? I mean, these are all pieces that still play into what specialty, because some areas it's limited in the specialty. And then again, as you mentioned earlier, the scores and things, or even your experience, but you need to start thinking now, because of the application change, that students need to be able to talk about those experiences in the ARIS application. It's not like it used to be where you list everything out there. So now I sit there and talk with them through what can you say about this to showcase this skill or characteristic that meets this specialty. So going through some of the tools that we'll discuss later, it kind of helps you narrow down, okay, what do I need to showcase about myself, and can I do that for the application or your personal statement or whatever you're doing for the match? That's a great way to use that data and kind of drive into what you need. But that's when you start looking at your CV. What else have I done there? What can I talk about? What helps me with this specialty? Like if you're going into a primary care specialty, family medicine, IM, and you didn't do anything in school for being volunteer or with your community, I'm going to tell you, let's get started, because those specialties, they have, if you're comparing them to others, they have higher levels of want for that, because that's the kind of, they need to see how engaged you are with your community, how much you really want to work with those folks, how much you really care. And we'll talk through how to write that up. What should I be doing and how to move forward? And then talking through those specialties, even if you're going for a reach, I'll talk with you and my students and say, okay, so we have part of this. Is it possible for you to look at that reach specialty? Are you able to add anything that might get you closer? Are you able to do some research? Because research becomes a thing in a lot of those specialties. Katie mentioned earlier, surgical specialties, especially. Last year, OB found that with the 2023 match, that they ended up matching students who had a lot more research than in previous years, and it wasn't the expectation, but it's happening. So with the whole pass-fail era, we talked through some of those scenarios. What are we doing that you can do to showcase yourself? What's changing for that? And those are all pieces that play into what specialty, and like the tools will show you, you can really drive in and get some of that information. So it's not just, oh, I love surgery. Oh, great. I'm glad you do. But do you have all these other pieces as well? And talking through those, a lot of the students may not want to hear some of the numbers and things we give them, but remember, it's meant to help you. We really want to help your specialty and say, hey, you know, you're a great fit because you have this, and this, or maybe you're not such a great fit, you know, and let's talk about other ways to do that. But that's where the data makes it wonderful, that it's not our opinion. We can tell you this is exactly what's happening across the nation. So yeah, we cover all those extra nuances. It's not just, you know, oh, I honored everything and I got a great board score. That helps, but there's a whole lot more to the whole picture that comes into the specialty. And it's different for all of them. I won't give you a blanket answer to, oh, my competitive. Well, let's talk. There's a lot that goes into that. So, Katie, do you have other things that you would like?
No, I think between the two of us, we really covered all of that. And I think we can probably toss it to Martin and Jazz to kind of cover the programs side of competitiveness.
Yeah, so that was all great information for choosing a specialty. But then once you choose a specialty, you have to figure out which programs align with your fit and your value and which work for you. And one of those things that students consider first would probably be program location. Where is that program located? And what features does that program have in terms of, is it an academic institution? Is it an urban institution? Or do you really prefer a rural setting? You know, how does that align with your vision of how you want to practice that specialty? And in terms of looking at program competitiveness, I always encourage our students to look at the current resident page. You can get a lot of information by just looking at the residents there. You know, have they taken osteopathic students? Will that help your ability to match into that program? And also, have they taken anyone from your school? Do you have alumni at your school that have represented you and your institution? And maybe that can work in your favor and even help you build a connection with that program. And then when you're looking at, you know, if they've taken DO students, the percentage of DO residents per class is important. You know, knowing how DO friendly that program is can really help you assess the competitiveness of that program. Also, looking at audition rotations, you know, if you like a program, then consider doing an audition rotation to see if that program is the right fit for you. You may go to that audition program and really fall more in love with the program, or you might decide that, you know, that isn't the fit or the culture that really works for me. And then another way to assess program competitiveness, to see if you have a connection or a mentor to the program, someone that can kind of help guide you and, you know, explain what the program is about and really do a deep dive into why that they found that program beneficial and how it helped them. Martin, how about you?
So some of the things that that may come up sometimes with students that I'm advising can sometimes often relate to fellowships after residency more than the residency itself. And that can sometimes direct a lot of decisions about the programs, the specific programs that someone might want to apply to give them a better chance of entering into a fellowship that they're interested in. One of the issues to kind of think about if that's kind of in your mindset is to remember to have a good blend of academic and community-based programs as part of your application. Applying to only academic programs, to only those brand name programs, for want of a better word, you know, those can be at the more competitive end of programs within a specific specialty. So for example, pediatrics is the specialty that I know best because I'm married to a board certified pediatrician neonatologist. And pediatrics is, of course, therefore the best specialty, and no one will convince me otherwise. But if you were interested in pediatrics and were only applying to programs like Children's Hospital of Philadelphia or Boston Children's or programs like that, then I think you are limiting your chances overall. You want, even if you're interested in fellowship afterwards, the most important step in a prospective fellowship application is getting into residency. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing your potential of matching into residency. So you always want to have a blend of both academic and community-based programs. You want to give yourself, cast a wide as a net as possible when it comes to maximizing your potential for matching into residency. So I'm handing it over to whoever's talking next.
So on the screen, you guys are going to see a list of a lot of different resources that are available for you to be able to research programs as well as specialty information. We're only going to focus on a couple of these tonight, but we want you to at least know that each of these are available. I'll just really quick kind of do a quick rundown of a few of them, and then Angie's going to cover a few. So the AACOM website, you can actually go to their program search and find every program that is currently accredited by AACOM. So those programs you will be able to look at all of the contact information for the program staff. So the program director, the program coordinators, and any other support staff, their email addresses are there. A lot of information about the program, like how many residents they have in the program, where they do all of their rotations and things like that are available there. And ARIS, you can search same kind of similar thing. You can find all the participating specialties that are utilizing ARIS for their application process, and all the programs that are utilizing ARIS for their application season. FRIDA is another site. FRIDA, there are some components of FRIDA that you can access information about the programs. That is free, but there is a component to get a lot more detailed information that is does require a registration fee to be able to, membership to be able to see additional info, but there is some limited. And then NRMP has a couple of really cool tools that our team is going to kind of go over this evening. So I won't go into that one yet. Same thing with Residency Explorer. We're going to dive into that in a minute. And then Angie, you want to cover the rest of these? You're muted.
There are several out there that you can look at that are a great resource. Doximity Residency Navigator is a newer resource that is really coming forward. They're trying to compete with like the Residency Explorer tool, but they have yet to include your COMLEX. So it's an MD tool, but it provides similar breakdowns of the program and specialty you're looking for. And then there are some sources that are specialty specific. So for emergency medicine, you have the MRAW match, OB-GYN, you have the alignment check, and the ortho, there's ORIN. Each one of them is to help you specifically to that specialty. And the OB-GYN alignment check is new as well. It's a pilot program. You can kind of go through and choose things, and it helps you decide if you're really a right fit. And hopefully that'll be coming available in other specialties soon. Then there's Texas Star, which is actually one of the few sites that's driven by the student provided information. It gets to, you can dig into it to find out, compare your profile to other students that are similar to you in a specialty and see where, you know, how they matched, what their numbers were, or if they got an interview. This is the place for student data on the match process. And then there's the AACOM postdoc guide. This is a great resource from AACOM that gives you information about osteopathic programs. You can find the ones that are osteopathically recognized, and then all the ones that switched at single accreditation. And it also some up-to-date information on our programs and institutional sponsors. So it's a great resource for you to check out. And then, of course, there's the program websites, which we'll be talking about more later in our next slides. So the first is the NRMP charting outcomes, and we're going to look at two different ways of doing this. Dr. Timoney is going to talk to you about the first parts of that, and then I will follow up.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen, and don't let the doctor title fool you to think that I have more expertise than I actually do. But trying to remember how to bear with me 1 second. Okay. So to get to the NRMP information, nrmp.org is the website that you go to initially, and glasses will be good at this point. What you're looking for is the data, match data and analytics. Clicking on that and scrolling down, you want to do the residency data and reports. That's where you'll get the PDF versions that I'm going to be going through in a second. But you also have the interactive tools. That option is there as well. So having grown up in Ireland and watched a lot of British television, children's television when I was growing up, I'm going to say, here's some charts that I prepared earlier and opened earlier. So at the very beginning of the charting, I should have clicked to show you actually. As I've told everyone, I ramble a lot, so I apologize. You want to scroll down to the research reports, and the one you're looking for is charting outcomes in the match senior students of USDO medical schools. So opening that, one of the first things, this is on page 5 of that document. This is a good demonstration of what Angie and Katie were talking about earlier, which is the competitiveness of different specialties. These are the match rates for DOs in different specialties. So you can see the different ranges. I think the highest match rate is pediatrics, 96.6%. The lowest is vascular surgery, 7.7%. So this is a kind of quick way of seeing, you know, how difficult, how competitive, how challenging is a particular specialty. What do the prospects look like for DOs in general when they're looking at a particular specialty? So I think this is a good place to kind of get some information like that. And there's some other really helpful global charts at the very beginning of this report that look at statistics across all different specialties. But I want to hone in particularly on specific specialties to get you a flavor of, okay, I know which specialty I'm interested in, but I want to know more information. So the first page on any particular specialty will give you the mean numbers for matched versus unmatched applicants. So the number of matched applicants, 251, the number of unmatched, 128. And you can compare, you know, what did it look like? What did the difference between matched and unmatched look like? So the number of contiguous ranks, which essentially just means the number of ranks within a single specialty that an applicant was able to have as part of their rank order list. For matched applicants, it was 11. For unmatched applicants, it was 5. So essentially that comes down to how many interviews did someone get. So it kind of makes it's fairly understandable that the more interviews that you get, the more likely you are to match. And kind of that's a reflection of that. The mean number of distinct specialties matched, 1.7 versus 2. So not an awful lot of difference there. But that's just how many specialties on average did people apply to. Mean COMLEX USA. So this particular version of the report is from 2022 when level 1 and step 1 were still scored. These numbers really don't have any particular value anymore. The more important will be the level 2 and step 2 scores. These are the average scores. And further down in the report, as we'll see in a moment, you do get the range of scores across at different score ranges, which can be really helpful to look at. And then you have the mean number of research experiences, mean number of abstracts, work experiences, volunteer experiences, percentage who have a PhD degree or percentage who have another graduate degree. This can be helpful in just understanding how important different factors are when it comes to matching into a specialty, how much research matters, how much publications matter, how much volunteer experiences matter. So scrolling down, the report then breaks down those different sections that we looked at above. So the number of distinct specialties ranked by USDO seniors. So 118 people who matched into anesthesiology only ranked anesthesiology. 84 people who matched into anesthesiology ranked had ranks in 2 different specialties. 47 ranked 3 different specialties. So it gives you an idea of how many programs, how many distinct specialties people applied to and how successful they were with that endeavor. So if you're someone who is thinking of dual applying, this can be very helpful information for that. The number of contiguous ranks. So again, this is a function of how many interviews someone had. So I think what's interesting here is where does the blue bar, which are the people who matched, start to get higher than the green bar, which is the people who didn't. So that's at around 7 interviews. At that point, and especially after that point, you see that people with 8 ranks were much more likely to match. So again, helpful information when it comes to having a good idea of how many interviews that you're going to need to target or want to get in order to feel confident about your ability to match. And again, this table essentially is looking at the same thing, but it's giving us information in terms of probability. What's the likelihood of your ability to match based on the number of programs that you're able to rank. So usually with my students, I'm interested in where does it hit the 80% probability mark. So with that, it's about 10 interviews. At that point, I generally think of it in terms of grades. 90% and above was an A grade. 80% and above is a B grade. So a B grade is what one of my professors for back in the day talked about a therapeutic B. This is a therapeutic B. It's kind of a safe, it feels like a safer place to be. After this, we have the level 1 and level 2 scores. Level 1, as we said, is kind of a moot point at this stage. I like going through this particular chart with students quite a lot because it shows the ranges, not just the mean score, but the actual ranges where things, really start to become a possibility for DOs. So when you're looking at where does the blue bar really start to outpace the green bar. And certainly that's at around the 600 mark in this particular case. Below 600, 550, things get a lot better than where it was before. But at 600, you're looking at a distinct advantage when it comes to level 2 scores. Personally, I don't use this particular chart a lot. It's probability based on COMLEX scores. But again, as I was kind of indicating before, the probability of matching, getting to that 80% level, you're kind of getting to that point at around 600 in terms of level 1. But I would argue the same is true of level 2. We have the step 2 CK scores here. And again, it's where is that blue bar having the greatest effect? And here we would say it's between 241 and 250. So this is giving a good idea of what your target scores and helping you set those target scores. And then we have the number of research projects. So this can be helpful just in terms of understanding how important is research. So we had 22 DOs matched in 2022 who had 0 research. 52 DOs matched who had 1 research project, 69 matched who had 2 research projects. And again, it's at this point that the blue bar outpaces the green bar. So 2 research projects is kind of a good place to be in terms of meeting a good requirement for anesthesiology. And again, number of presentations, publications, 45 match with none, 38 match with 1. So again, this is giving us a good idea of what's necessary versus kind of just operating on a social media assumption that unless you have tons and tons and tons of these things, all hope is lost. That's usually not the case for most specialties. So this is a good way of seeing, you know, how should I think of in terms of targets and how can I assess what I have against what's been successful in the past. And again, number of work experiences. One point on this is that work experiences operated under the definition of a work experience in ERIS. And in ERIS, basically lots of things counted as work experience, even if you weren't actually paid. So any clinical experience or teaching experience that you had that even if you weren't paid for it, it's still counted as a work experience. Also, these are not limited to your time in medical school. So things that happen before medical school can be counted as work experiences or volunteer experiences. So again, it gives a good idea that different work experiences, having a decent volume of work experiences is helpful. This year and going forward, of course, the application is limited to 10 experiences total. So in the future, this particular chart may look quite different. This particular instance may not be as helpful in calculating anything for this year or future matches. But this report is updated every 2 years. So for the class of 2025, we should have new data, which will be really helpful for future classes. Again, number of volunteer experiences, comparing match versus unmatched. 5 seems to be a good number in this particular case, but 3 and 4 weren't bad either. It's always about where does the blue bar outpace the green bar is the simplest way to think of it. And then some other characteristics, how many had a PhD degree, how many had graduate degrees, just looking at the effect of those particular categories. So that's essentially how I would go through this report with someone. I know that was kind of a lot of information given very quickly, but this is a really helpful tool for exploring what the data says about your competitiveness for a particular specialty. And I think Angie now is going to take you through an interactive way of looking at this same data.
Yep, I'm going to share with you they do have, it's awesome. The Challenging Outcomes is now available to share electronically. It's also on the same site that where Martin was. When you get here, you have several options. They have broken it out so that you can, depending on how you want to look up a specialty, you can do it in different ways. So they have, for the first one is charting outcomes for demographics. So you can go through, and there's a whole lot in there. I'm not going to go through each step because that's just too much, but you can go in and look for those if you're, part of an underrepresented community, or if you're a part of, if you happen to be of a different ethnic background, you can look and see how many matched in that specialty, what was the ranges, and you really female to male to all the demographic about you guys comes up in there. It's really interesting once you start digging into it. And because if you're looking for one where you know, that they really prefer certain people, you want to know if there's going to be other people like yourself in there. So it's a great way to do it. You also get to do charting outcomes, which is what we were just discussing, and I'll go into that here a second. And then you also have what's the program director survey. So they're all in one place, whereas the other one that Martin was talking about is just a specific PDF for charting outcomes. Here you get all three at a glance, and they all have their value. In this one, you can do, of course, the COMLEX. The thing I like about this, and I like to take through students, if you're like me, I like my tools right at my fingers, so I can play with it as I want to, and I don't have to do a bunch of scrolling or whatever I want to do. It shows you a lot of those same things that Martin was showing you, but you can do it all on one screen because they've got it split. So here's anesthesia, of course, and it talks about the match to preferred specialty, so you're getting that probability also. And here it gives you the scores. So it gets that, and if you notice, the bottom screen changes with you. So you get to, it highlights for you what the average was for the number of applicants and what their score was. And then this is they didn't match to their preferred specialty. So you get kind of both information as you go through it. Again, you can see that curve as things change in the demographics. You get the top and bottom. You can use all these filtering symptoms here, so you don't just have to dig. If you want to know and compare yourself, you can go through here. You know, if you're a DO, obviously you want to just do DO seniors, and then you want to add in your COMLEX 2. Because if you see here, they don't have a, they just put the 2. So yeah, you can do, let's see, we got our, and you just take them all off. We're going to say we got a 559. And you can do all these different things and see your chart updates automatically. So you can, specific to what you're looking for. How likely am I to be in here? So you can kind of target it more towards yourself as you go through those. And then it's always movable. So you can do that as specialties. You can change it by match year in here. Whereas the charting outcomes, the most recent document is for 2022. But if for some reason you wanted to look at them to look for trends, you could pick multiple years or just do a single year. Because I saw a question that came across, how do you know with how things change, what to highlight? Well, this could help you with that, because you could pick, okay, a couple of years we did this, and for EM, say it got real competitive, then it had a downturn, and then it came back up. You can see those kind of trends and help you, or your advisors will use it also to help you say, okay, this is where you might want to highlight if you're missing something. It's great for, and here again, you get to do all the specialties. You can go through pieces, publications. And again, this tool we expect to change just as much as the charting outcome document because of this year. Things will be consolidated. Your scores will just be the 2s. They may add in number of failed attempts because that comes up in the PD survey. But it's a great tool for add a fingers, and you can do some quick, hey, what's about me? So now keep in mind that the charting outcomes only shows you specialties that there's at least 50 or more programs. So some specialties are not in here. And if you're wanting those, then you might want to go to those sites. But this is a great piece, and I like going in there. I send my students there, or I go through it with my students so that they understand it. And then of course I always send the PDFs in here. You can make highlight notes on it too. So hopefully you with using both of them. If you're missing something, you can always, kind of pull them together. So hopefully you like it. Katie?
All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. And so Martin and Angie did a great job of kind of helping you identify those right fit specialties and see where you align within each specialty that you're considering. Residency Explorer is a really great tool to help you analyze your right fit special or program specific. So you will use your AAMC login to sign into Residency Explorer, and it's just residencyexplorer.org. And when you log in, the first thing I always encourage my students to do is go to the My Profile tab and go ahead and plug in your information. So it's going to ask for all of your experiences, like Martin had shown you in those graphics, the work, volunteer, research, publication experiences. You'll be able to indicate that you're a DO senior. And then I went ahead and plugged in some board scores. I will give you a caveat. Residency Explorer is supposed to be going down here in the next couple of weeks for some serious major updates and upgrades. One of the components they're going to correct is removing level 1 and step 1 from it, and because they're pass fail now. But they're also supposed to be they've told us that they're going to be adding some additional data points. So we're really excited to see what they're adding. That's a result of the ARIS supplemental application with program signaling and geographic preferences and things. But what I encourage students, at least for now, until the update happens, go ahead and plug in a board score for level 1. And then for level 2, go ahead and put in the score you're hoping to get. Like, what is your target score? Go ahead and plug it in now and hit save. Now, keep in mind, you can only edit this 2 times. And you can see I've only done it once and it says I have 2 of 3 entries left. So I tell students just plug in what your target is, and then you can go into the Explore tab. You can pick a specialty. There's a lot of specialties to choose from. But once you plug in all that information in the My Profile tab, all of this whole column shows up that didn't show up before. So I can very quickly and easily see all of the DO-friendly programs, because that's a really important component. You want to make sure that they are willing to even look at a DO applicant. You have the ability to filter by state. For those of you that have geographic preferences, you can narrow it down to a specific state. If you have certain regions of the country, there's also the component where if you're looking within a certain radius of maybe a city, you can put in the zip code of that city and then the mile radius distance that you're hoping to be within. As well as those of you that require a visa, you can plug in which visas that you're needing to have them be willing to accept or sponsor. And then if you're interested in looking at programs that are osteopathic recognized, you can select that as well. So I will show you really quick one thing. When you scroll all the way down, like it's all sorted by DO, the percent that match successfully into the program that are DOs, but you're going to scroll all the way down past the 0%, and then below the 0%, there are a bunch more programs that have dashes. I can't tell you why, but when they click on the program, their data is actually there. So you can see what percent of that program is DO. So we're just going to click on a program. And in this, you're going to have at the very top of the page, you're going to have information about the program's location, their website, the program director and coordinator information, coordinator's phone number, their program code. I will encourage you to, sometimes these links here aren't the best. So go to the AACGME website or Google the program to find the exact program page, because sometimes it's hard to find. But you can see how big the program is. How many residents do they have in the program? What's their current accreditation status? And then all of this kind of information is pulled from the match process and from AAMC and AACGME. And so how many positions did they fill in 2022 and how many were filled prior to SOAP? And you can see all 8 positions were filled prior to SOAP for this program. Here's where you can help determine how competitive a program is. If you see the number of applicants in a program be a lot higher than the national average. So over here on the right side, this is the averages for all EM programs across the country. Because I selected emergency medicine. So when you see the number of applicants for a program be a lot higher than the national average, that's a highly sought after program. A lot more people are applying to that one program than the majority of other emergency medicine programs. That's a highly competitive program. When you see the percent of their applicants get interviewed be really, really low compared to the national average, that's usually an indication that they're really particular about their applicant criteria. They're sticklers, they have harder criteria to meet. When you see that percent be really high compared to the national average, honestly, those programs look at a lot more components. They're a lot more flexible with their applicant criteria. Those ones tend to do a lot deeper holistic review of the applicants and who they decide to give interviews, and they interview a lot more people as a result. And so down here, because I plugged in my experiences, I can see where my experiences align with those that successfully matched into this specific program. And for those of you that don't have, say, research, this is a great way to see, oh, well, 22% of those that matched into this program didn't have research. I actually have a shot in this program. So you can kind of use this to help you identify, does my profile align with this program? Now down here, the score requirements, this is where I anticipate some pretty significant changes. At least we're hoping for some changes. I will give you a disclaimer, this information isn't always the most current up to date for a specific program as to whether or not this is their current score minimum that they have. I strongly advise every student, if you have a score that's kind of borderline for a specialty or you're concerned may not meet a cutoff for a specialty, go to that program's website to see what they have posted. And Jazz is going to show you a program website here in a minute, but always verify that what they have on their website, because that's probably more reliable than what they have posted here on Residency Explorer as to what their score minimums are, because you want to make sure that your scores meet their cutoff. If your score is below what they have posted online and on their website as being their minimum, they're not going to even touch your application. They'll filter it out in ARIS. But down here, there's a lot of benefit information about the program. You can see salary information and other benefits that they offer their residents, as well as some other components of their program, like research opportunities that they have. And then this is the part I really like to show students that also allows you to see very visually what their demographics are of their current residents. So you can see gender and race, but down here is where you can see how DO friendly the program is, as well as you can see what is the national average for the specialty. So it does a nice comparison. So this program is 80% DOs. That's the highly DO friendly program. And I think if you were to ask every advisor what their magic percent or number of residents being DOs in a program as the target, they'll probably give you a different answer, honestly, or in a range. Ideally, I tell my students, I want to see that program have at least 15 to 20% DOs. 15 is ideal. When you get down to like 5%, it's not likely they're going to look at your application unless you are a rock star applicant with very, very high academics and high board scores where you're going to really get attention just because of that. But when you see like 2, 3, and 4% DOs, it's not very likely. I would count that as a reach program. And I tell my students, like, look at your academic profile, talk to your advisor about it, helping you identify what are my target things I need to be looking at to help me identify a right fit program versus a reach program. And, looking at the percent of DOs in the program is a big component for you, depending on your academic profile and really all DOs. But here's also where you can see, is there a regional bias with the program? So sometimes there are programs, and I will say, I think Texas is probably the most common that I run into. I see some programs in other parts of the country. I think besides Texas, New York and California might be the next that I would say that I run into, where it seems like a lot of the residents that matched into their program came from very specific regions or within their state. And so it doesn't mean you can't apply to those programs. It just means, again, data may not potentially be in your favor, and it might be deemed more of a reach program if you didn't graduate from that medical school. And so you can quickly see if there's any kind of regional bias. Now I will show you, click on the click here down here, and it'll expand so you can actually see every single program that their residents came from, how many came from. This is looking at this program. This is a very diverse program that they had residents come from all over the country. So there's not one specific regional focus for me to worry about whether or not my application would be considered. But so that's a great way to utilize Residency Explorer. You can look at a lot of different programs to help you kind of find the right fit programs that based upon your personal profile, and really work with your advisor to help identify the things that you need to be paying attention to that are unique to you. Jazz, I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share some information from a program website.
Yes, thank you, Katie. And, like Katie said, you can find data about programs on Residency Explorer and other pages, but, in order to find the most recent information about a program, we highly recommend that you go to the program website and get the information, because that's going to be the place where it's updated most frequently. And I picked 2 websites that I wanted to kind of go over with you. And I'm not affiliated with either one of them. I just thought that their websites were really nice and informative. The first one's University of Kentucky. It's an OBGYN program. Look at the websites and read their welcome introduction. It tells you a lot about what characteristics they're looking for in a resident and what their program is known for. This program is talking about didactic instruction and clinical training and role modeling. And so those are things, or characteristics they're also looking for in their applicants, and things that you'll get to see when you visit the program. So you'll always start with the program director and the program coordinator. And I liked this website because it had a list of all the residents. And most programs do a really good job of showing the name of the residents and what schools that they came from. So you can see that they have a lot of osteopathic candidates every year during their program. And so it's really nice to see that they're a DO-friendly program. Some websites will separate out different tabs for this information, and some will actually put it all under one tab. So, just be sure to figure out how to navigate their website and get all the information you can. This program also talks about their curriculum. So you can see what rotations you're going to be doing every month and how many electives, or if they have opportunities for electives for you to do. And then you look at the resident education. So, every Thursday morning from 8 to noon, they're going to have didactics and different resident education. So they've got it built into their curriculum. So if that is your preferred learning style, then this is something that you would want to look for in your program deep dive. And then they also have requirements. And so this is where you're going to see what their requirements are for board examinations. And so for this website, they say applicants must have passed USMLE Step 1 and 2 or the COMLEX equivalent. So they do recognize the COMLEX equivalent. So if you've taken just the COMLEX, that's okay with this program. Later on, I liked this because they actually have preferred qualifications. They don't just say that you need to have a COMLEX score. They're going to give you information about where they think that their competitiveness for their program is based on their COMLEX score or USMLE. And for this program, they talk about, they're looking at an applicant that has the preparedness, ability, aptitude, academic, communication skills, and other personal qualities. So they're really looking holistically at your application, and their program's preferred qualifications are a USMLE of 235, and above on each step. So that means obviously just the 2 now, and then the COMLEX scores of 550. And so it kind of gives you a breakdown for the USMLE and the step. And they also say, no failures on any of the board exams is their preferred qualifications. They also go into application and matching services. So this is really important when you're looking at websites. You want to look at everything that it needs to be included in the application when you are applying. Of course, this is going to be through ARIS, but some programs, like this program says 3 letters of professional reference. Some programs will tell you specifically what types of letters they're requiring. If they want a chair letter, if they want a specialized, the OBGYN letter that came out there, they're slow, if they'll specify that. And so you definitely want to look at what types of letters their program requires. And they also have a section for international medical graduates. Later on, it'll tell you all about the interview process. So if you do get accepted to this program, then you want to make sure that you visit their page to read all about the interview process and how they're scheduled, and who you'll be interviewing with. So, it'll tell you that you're interviewing with the program director, coordinator, faculty. You get a tour of the facilities and have lunch with the residents. And then it has different breakdowns. So I just wanted to highlight another program really quickly. I know we're almost out of time, but this program is internal medicine residency. They have a message from the program director. You can also click on the different tabs like I talked about. You can click on current internal medicine residents, application guidelines to see how to apply for this program. And I think this was the one that spoke about the different letters, but it also has hospital policies such as no smoking, flu shots, and COVID vaccine shots. So if that's something that you're looking for, then you want to make sure that you meet all the requirements in terms of those guidelines. If you keep on scrolling, it has the curriculum, the rotations, how to follow them on social media, their clinics, the research the residents do, questions about the residency, and then even something about the city and how to follow them. So make sure you research the program because it can tell you lots of important information when you're trying to decide if that program is the right fit for you. Turn it back to you, Dr. Hiles.
Yes, thank you everyone for your presentations. There was one question in the chat that we're going to answer live, and I'm going to reach out to Katie Harden for that.
All right, so the question is there anything my significant other and I can do to boost our chances of successful and good placements for couples matching? And I think we can all probably provide some advice on this one, and I'll start us off. When it comes to couples matching, you do need to strategize together. You really need to work together to ensure that you are intentionally applying within the same regions. But also my advice when it comes to audition rotations, I personally think you don't necessarily have to be doing them at the same time, but again, to increase your odds of matching into those regions, try to do your auditions in the same regions that are your highest priority regions. And then what advice do you guys have? Angie, Jazz, Martin, what else would you recommend besides the strategizing of selection of programs?
What I tell students is always, when you're doing that strategizing, you need to be very honest with each other. You need to be honest about what your priorities are. If someone's matching, which one is, someone's matching for an uber competitive specialty, you guys need to talk through those scenarios of how it may impact the other one. Or if if it's not available in a lot of the country, are you willing to go there? And make sure you're disclosing all of your scores and failures and things so that you're know everything, because otherwise you're going to have an unfortunate match. And then the other piece is to don't limit yourself on the number of ranks. We've had a few students in the past who didn't do as well because they thought they listed enough, but they'd only listed like 15 or 20. Yeah, if you can do more, the most amount of ranks you can, it's to your advantage as a couple.
And the way to get the most amount of ranks is maybe looking at big cities that have multiple programs, because then you can make multiple combinations. If you had 5 interviews in Chicago and your partner had 5 interviews in Chicago, you can make tons of combinations, and that just makes your rank list longer. So I think that's a good strategy to do as well.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything more to say about that. I think the strategizing is really important. I think working together and being open and honest with each other, and laying your cards on the table as you're going into all of this, making sure that you're applying to regions that work for you as a couple. So, if one of you is applying to a program in Washington State and another in Florida, that's obviously not going to do very much as a couples match. But also something that sometimes will come up for students that I work with, there are cities that are quite close to each other, like, for example, San Antonio and Austin. So thinking as well as individual cities and towns that you're interested in being, but regions as well. Does anything that works for you as a couple, anything that you can make an argument for that works for you as a couple, then that's worth putting in as a couple's rank.
I actually had a couple a few years ago that broadened the region that they were submitting their applications to and ended up matching where they were about 70 minutes apart, and they ended up buying a house halfway in between. And so it worked great for both of them. And the other thing Jazz had talked about is, applying to programs. And one of the things you can do when you're applying to programs in the same region and one of you gets an interview and the other one doesn't in that region, it's okay to advocate for each other. That's another thing that can really improve your chances of getting an interview. You can contact, let's say you did not get the interview, you can contact your program via email and let them know that you are couples matching and that your partner interviewed with XYZ program and you'd love the opportunity to be considered. Your partner can contact their program and say, hey, or while they're interviewing, yeah, I'm couples matching, and so my partner has applied for XYZ program, and we're hoping that they'll get an interview offer. And a lot of times those program directors will connect, especially if they really liked you and you were that interview, or they can advocate actually for your partner saying, hey, we'd like you to give them a shot and give them an interview because we'd like to rank them pretty highly. So that's another component that can kind of help improve your chances of getting interviews as well.
And that works. When I was a program coordinator, we had 3 residencies that were all close together. So we talked with amongst ourselves, who is matching, and do you have this person's spouse? Can you please give an interview, even if they hadn't thought about it? They always put some weight into it because they're trying to help each other out. So don't be afraid to advocate.
Great, thank you all. Most of the questions that have been submitted ahead of time have already been answered. One quick one is, what does the term osteopathic recognition mean, as there are programs that teach OMT without this recognition? And the short answer is osteopathic recognition is just it was an application process that the program went through with AACOM to actually get approved by the Osteopathic Recognition Committee to be an approved osteopathic program, but that does not limit. That does not mean that other programs cannot have osteopathic education involved. I'm gonna look at the panel for one last thing in just a second. One of the things that I want to reemphasize that's been emphasized 100 times over tonight is that please utilize the people on your campus for the information. I would say that the overwhelming majority of the schools are represented at the Council of Osteopathic. The Council of Residency Placement. Sorry, I'm on so many committees, I get confused sometimes. But most of them are represented there, and the council does meet twice a month. And the majority of the meetings are just open dialogue. And if you have a question for whoever's at your school and they're not sure, they will bring that question to the group. And I would say on an average, we have over 50% of the schools represented at every meeting. So please utilize the career counselors, residency placement coordinators, whatever their title is, but utilize them. And finally, I will turn to the panelists. First of all, I want to thank the panelists and thank the staff at AACOM for this, and also thank all of you for attending. But as a wrap up, just, anybody have any top tips for students trying to have a successful match?
Be realistic. Be realistic and do your homework. Take the time to research programs to make sure that you're not wasting your time and dollars on applying to a program where it is very clear the data is not in your favor. There's a lot of resources and information out there that's available to help you identify those right fit programs, and make sure you're doing that homework and that research. Take the time to select appropriately. It is absolutely okay to apply to REACH programs, but I always tell my students to make sure to not only that if you're going to apply to those REACH programs, you've got to have a healthy balance and enough right fit programs as well. Go ahead and take a shot on those REACH programs. We don't blame you. Just have enough of those right fit programs as well in that toolkit of yours to increase your chances of getting interviews and matching successfully.
To tag team onto what Katie said, that this data can help you. For DO students, they apply to more applications than their MD counterparts. This data can help reduce the over application and hopefully your bottom line for this, but it really does increase your chances. That if you know that these are the places that should be a good fit for you, you can be comfortable knowing that at least at a baseline, this place would be good for me. And not, don't go to Reddit. That's another tip. Don't do it. Don't tell me you went to Reddit about something. I will yell. But yeah.
No to Reddit. I'm with you.
Jazz, Martin, any final comments?
I always tell my students that you need a plan B. Everybody's plan B is different. I mean, if you are reaching, like Katie said, for REACH programs, then your plan B might just having a healthy balance of realistic programs. But if you're reaching for a REACH specialty, then your plan B might be looking at alternative specialties. Martin showed the data that A lot of people in anesthesia applied to multiple specialties and either matched or didn't match. And so, you know, you're not the only one that's going through but the plan B. But, you know, I'm a paranoid person, so I always like to have a good backup plan. And you always want the backup plan. You pray that you never have to use it, but it gives you that peace of mind to be able to make it through this stressful time in your life.
There's not much more that I can add to what's already been said. But more generally, I would say keep working on your application in general. Don't leave everything until the last minute. You don't have to fill out your application in one sitting. Save it, save a section, come back, write a few sentences on your personal statement and come back. But try to get everything done. I would say by the end of August. Make sure that you're contacting your letter writers. Make sure that you're just chipping away at that block until it becomes the statue of elegance that you're going to send to residency programs. Please don't quote that phrase, that came out of nowhere.
Steal that.
But anyway, please just keep chipping away at your application so that you're not left with a lot of work to do in September when you will feel overwhelmed by doing it. Get as much done as you can in the next 6 weeks.
All right, again, I want to thank the panel for their expertise and an excellent presentation. Thank the staff for their support, and especially thank the attendees. Again, this recording will be available. And with that, I want to say good night to all and have a great evening.